Okay. Okay. Yes, I don't have access to the link to the Yes. Of this, yes. This. And then when Yes. So, what they do, all the time. So I'm just yeah, I mean, I thought no companies that not. Where is the there?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, we ought to have started this meeting by 9:30 to 10. But while we are waiting for other key participants that will join us at this very important meeting, we felt that it's important we should just start so that others can join as we move on. The agenda for the program, they are bringing it in the next few minutes. And let's just go by the draft agenda as I can see it here. First of all, I want to welcome you all to this very important meeting. And by way of the agenda, we start by opening prayer. Can somebody volunteer to lead us in prayer so that we commit this meeting in the hands of God, so that at the end, whatever we are going to discuss will add value to the Nigerian economy? Let somebody volunteer, please.
صلى على النبي الكريم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمغفرة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. Our God Almighty, we commit this our meeting
Amen. Next on the agenda is self-introduction so that we know ourselves. I think it's important. I will start with my director who is representing the permanent secretary, Federal Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, so that we know who is here.
Good morning all. My name is Ibrahim Tanimu, Director of Planning and Policy Coordination from the Ministry. Thank you.
Good morning all. My name is Lawal Adenike. I'm a serving copper.
Good morning all. I'm Olorunmola Dari Raphael, Federal Minister of Agric and Food Security, Planning and Policy Coordination Department, Research and Statistics Branch. Thank you.
Morning participants. My name is Garbo Kili from Office of Accountant General of the Federation, OAGF.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Olushola Michelia from Budget and Economic Planning.
Good morning, all. My name is Idris Shehu from National Program for Food Security of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security.
Planning, Policy and Coordination, Minister of Agriculture.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabiatu Bakari from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Planning and Policy Coordination Department, ICT Division.
Good morning, all. My name is Wakawa Rohama, Planning and Policy Coordination Department, Principal Admin Officer. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Omide Odiba from Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Department of Agricultural Land and Climate Change Management Services, Assistant Chief Land Resources Officer. Thank you.
Good morning, all. My name is Ibrahim, Minister of Agriculture, Federal Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Onyema Ubwak Cecilia from Federal Ministry of Agri, Cocoa Value Chain.
Good morning, all. Yekini Rasaki is my name, Deputy Director, Animal Boundary Services Department, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Abuja. Thank you.
Good morning, Mohamed Tumala, Director Statistics at the Central Bank of Nigeria, and I'm pleased to join Minister of Agri in this process. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Manson Wafo with the MAFAP program, FAO.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean-Philippe Lodunion Harding. I'm the country coordinator for Nigeria for the MAFAP program, which stands for Monitoring and Analyzing Agriculture and Food Policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
Good morning. I'm Austin. I'm head of ITF in Nigeria. Thank you.
My own name is Ibrahim Mohammed. I'm the focal point for the MAFAP program in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. I believe that we are aware where we are here. The program is all about to share preliminary finding on the agriculture expenditure analysis carried out by FAO through the lead consultant who was here with us, so that we can see what the result will be and possibly maybe the policy option that will guide the government on how to move agricultural sector forward. Without taking much of your time, next on the agenda is a welcome address / opening address by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, heavily represented by the Director of Planning and Policy Coordination in person of Ibrahim Tanimu. Sir.
Good morning. Our colleague from the CBN Director Statistics, the consultant, the representative of FAO country rep here, other critical stakeholders, my colleague from Ministry of Budget and National Planning, my colleague from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural and Food Security. Good morning. I'm pleased to welcome you all to this meeting for the presentation of a preliminary outcome of the public agriculture expenditure analysis for policy option conducted by the FAO under the context of monitoring analysis. The ministry must commend the FAO for its continued technical and financial support for the development of agriculture in the country. Indeed, the outcome of the study to be presented by the lead consultant is coming at the appropriate time that will guide the ministry on specific areas that require reprioritize funding for increased food production across the country. It is necessary to state that the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security is very committed to deliver the core programs and projects towards ensuring food security as one of the 8 priority areas of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In this regard, adequate funding remains key to actualizing agricultural transformation. A step is the establishment of the Agricultural Development Fund to complement the usual budgetary allocation to the sector. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as per our focus today, the policy option for the study will guide in an evidence-based manner on specific areas that will require refocus and improve funding for overall agricultural development in the country.
On this note, I wish to declare this meeting open. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Director of Planning and Policy Coordination, for these wonderful welcome remarks. Next on the agenda, the chairman permit me to invite the lead consultant, Dr. Jean, to make a presentation on the preliminary finding on the public expenditure in support of food and agriculture in Nigeria. May I call Dr. Jean to take over the floor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. So thank you again for joining us this morning. Today, we will have two sessions. The first one will include a brief presentation of MAFAP. I mean, some of you have been present at the validation meeting that was organized earlier. Some of you are probably new to the program. In any event, I think it's good to have a bit of a refresher on what MAFAP covers and what is the value added of this program compared to other policy monitoring tools. Right after that, we will jump into the preliminary results coming from the analysis of public expenditure in support of agriculture. And we will also allow sufficient time to have a Q&A to be able to discuss, provide clarification, address questions and concerns around the results that are presented to you. This is the first session. The second session, and I won't say too much about it now, of course, we will discuss the next step for as regards to the public expenditure analysis that we will present to you, but also next steps in terms of activities from MAFAP, which has several pillars and several types of intervention. So let's start with session one, and particularly with MAFAP and its analysis of public expenditure in support of agriculture. So the slide, I think there's a little delay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So MAFAP again stands for Monitoring and Analyzing Food and Agriculture Policy. It was created in 2009. We work in Uganda, Mozambique, Kenya, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Ethiopia, and of course, Nigeria. And the objective is to create evidence for policy monitoring analysis by providing diagnostics and by enabling decision maker to have evidence for their decisions. There are, as I mentioned before, two pillars to these interventions. The MAFAP interventions are articulated around two pillars. The first one is the policy monitoring. The policy monitoring is based on two types of indicators. First, the price incentive indicators, which measure the effect of government policies and market conditions on prices of key agricultural commodities along the value chain at different stages, different points of the value chain. And the second, which we are about to discuss today, which is the public expenditure indicators, which measure the level and composition of government spending on food and agriculture. Both those indicators play as a diagnostic of agricultural policy environment in a country and help us also understand the coherence between the evidence extracted from those two indicators and the objectives of the main policy tools in effect during the periods of studies. Particularly MAFAP in Nigeria. So Nigeria is a partner of the new phase of our program, which started in 2021 and will run until 2027. We have signed a work plan which defines obviously objectives, activities, deliverables, and timeline for the collaboration between MAFAP and Nigeria. And it is again based on those two pillars. According to the first pillars, the activities are the update of the price incentive indicators, which is ongoing and in the point of being finalized, and the public expenditure monitoring. Those updates are meant to be done until year 2020. And the idea is again to analyze the level and type of government support that is provided to the agri-food sector and subsectors. The second pillar, which we will focus on during the second session, is the analysis by MAFAP of two policy issues, which are considered as high priorities for inclusive agricultural transformation in the country, and which ideally are also included in the list of priority policy intervention that is selected through the result of the price incentives analysis and the public expenditure analysis. So just briefly, a remark on MAFAP compared to other monitoring public expenditure tools. The first one that I want to talk about is RASAX, which stands for, I don't have it here. Well, let's just describe it. So RASAX, which tracks the CAADP expenditure targets using a COFOG definition of agriculture and covers many countries. The second one is the SPEED maintained by IFPRI, which also uses a COFOG definition of agriculture and relies on IMF and Ministries of Finance data, which has, unfortunately, analysis that are not updated on a regular basis. The third one is ASTI, which tracks public expenditure on agricultural research in Africa using a very specific methodology, which has the value of having indicators since 1981. And of course, the agriculture public expenditure reviews by the World Bank, which are freestanding analysis, which includes both level, composition, and effectiveness of agricultural public expenditure. It covers many African countries and uses the COFOG and COFOG plus definition of agriculture. Then in the middle of this landscape, there is MAFAP, there is MAFAP, which has a scope that is broader than some of them. I think in terms of competitive advantage, MAFAP is really useful when it comes to the level of disaggregation and details that is being provided. We see in this slide that MAFAP can be considered as COFOG compatible because it covers both the scope of the COFOG definition of agriculture and the definition of COFOG plus of agriculture, and adds a broader component on the ag supportive activities, which I will detail in a moment. So I would say that all of them are very complementary. It really depends on the scope of the analysis that is required. I think MAFAP offers a great level of details, but maybe others might be more efficient in cross-country comparison, since, as I told you, MAFAP covers around 9 African countries and not more for the moment. So looking closely at the perimeter of MAFAP public expenditure. So in this table, we see that the perimeter includes 2 types of expenditure. The first one is called agriculture-specific expenditure, and the second one, agriculture supportive expenditure. If we focus on the first one, agriculture-specific expenditure, it encompasses the expenditure that are directly supporting the agricultural sector, including some transfer to consumers. Within this type, there are 2 types of agent sector. So the first one are transfer to agents, and the second one, general support. So if we think about transfer to agent, it focuses more on private goods to help particular agents in the sector, which includes input subsidies or, for instance, cash transfers. When we go to the general support, then it's more agriculture public goods like infrastructures, research and extensions, the production and the construction of rural feeder road, water infrastructure, storage capacity. Those are regarded as the general support. If we then move back to what is specific to MAFAP, so moving away from the agricultural specific expenditure and going to the agricultural supportive, then we look at expenditure that are more broadly in support of the agricultural sector. So those are expenses that support indirectly the sector, and the best examples are rural health and health program and education services in rural areas. MAFAP considers them as agricultural supportive expenditure because of how indirectly they support the ag sector in those geographical areas. So this is a brief overview of the perimeter of MAFAP to kind of help you navigate the results that we will then present to you in a few seconds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. I will continue from here. So here we look at what we found out when the MAFAP methodology was used on Nigerian data to see trends in public expenditure. Okay, so just to summarize the limitations we faced, and then we look at the results. The data was obtained from the Ministry of Finance through the Accountant General's office. It covers all expenditure by all ministries for 2015 to 2021. We needed data from outside the ministry because agriculture expenditure is not just the one done by Ministry of Agric. You have environment, you have water resources, so many 3 or 4 other key ministries that support that do agric expenditure, like irrigation is with water resources. It's not with unless in the new change, but before it was with water resources. So what we did was to pick out everything that had to do with agric, whether it was a ministry of agric or in a related ministry. One of the challenges we faced was the way Nigeria stores its own expenditure data by the federal government. Donor financed expenditure doesn't come out so clearly. You see 1 or 2, but it doesn't come out so clearly. So we had to leave that out. MAFAP analysis, normally you bring out donor funded activities, but here we couldn't do that. We had to leave it out. The other challenge we had was the column in the data that was supposed to give us detailed location data where the monies were spent. It wasn't faithfully followed, so we couldn't really use it. We had to resort to other indicators of where the money was spent. And where the indicator wasn't, that information wasn't clearly available, we had to share it based on urban-rural indices. So those are the challenges we faced. So let's go to the big picture. So going to the big picture, yeah. What we see is that the nominal budget and actual expenditure in agric increased all through from 2015 to 2021. Only in 2020, due to COVID, did it go down. for reasons we all know. It was a really tight period. It was a really tight period at that time. And then the top line there shows you the Maputo target of 10%. The next one below it shows you the public expenditure in agriculture. The way we define it here, it includes agriculture supportive expenditure. So that's rural health, rural education, rural infrastructure. And you can see it doesn't meet the CADA targets. It comes to an average of 6% for the 6 or 7 years. But that is the definition we're using here. But even if you go to the popular CADA definition, which we call the narrow definition, that does not include health, rural education, etc., you see that Nigeria was about 2%, the famous Maputo target. Nigeria was about 2%. So there's an issue there. Okay, so now if we dig into the public expenditure in agriculture, we see that the bulk of it, 73% of it, is for ag supportive expenditures. Again, why are we interested in ag supportive? Because we know that if the rural sector is not doing okay, the rural areas, if they're not doing okay, farmers are likely to be less productive. So if farmers are healthier, if they are more educated, they have higher productivity. So we have to look at rural development and how it affects agricultural output, productivity, etc. So in this analysis, we look at agriculture supportive expenditures and then agriculture specific. So agriculture specific is agricultural research, extension, feeder roads. These are all directly related to agri. If not for agri, you wouldn't have them. So what is that 73% of agri expenditure is agri supportive and 23% I don't know if you missed something. I was saying just before it cut off that if you look at the bottom in the green part of the bar chart, you see that agri-specific expenditure share has been increasing gradually from 2015 to 2021. Still, the bulk of it is agri-supportive. So this is not FMAD or Ministry of Food and Security expenditure alone. It's a host of ministries that do agriculture-related spending. So next slide, we go to key aspects of agricultural spending. If I take you, let me just quickly take you back. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so just to quickly take you back, if you have agriculture specific here, inside it you have transfers to agents, producers, consumers. Inside it you have general support. So now we're going to break down what did we see in transfers to agents? What were the big areas inside transfers to agents? Then we go to general support. What were the big areas there? And then we go to supportive expenditure. What were the big areas there? That's what we're going to do in the next few slides. Okay. All right, so here we're looking at payments to agents. You're talking of producers, consumers, input suppliers, transporters. These are the agents in the agri sector. And to improve productivity and output, government makes payments in different forms. You have payments to producers, which include the GES that is going in a new name now. It includes school feeding program. It includes food aid. That's payments to payments to producers is about inputs, but the school feeding program is payments to consumers. So what do we see? The biggest share is the one to consumers, the light brown at the top. You can see it's very big over the years. And this is primarily the school feeding program, which we've been doing for some years, and a little bit of food aid. But it's primarily the school feeding program, and that the share was an average of 68%. Next to that is support to producers, which involves the GES, we know, subsidies towards on-farm irrigation, towards inputs and on-farm services. That one is about 1/3. Then payments to other suppliers was just about 1%. So you've seen, as far as agents are concerned in the sector, this is who is getting what. The highest goes to consumers, particularly the school feeding program. So the school feeding program and payments to consumers is excluded from the normal CADA definition of agri expenditure. That's the big difference. So let's go to the next category, which is general support to the sector. So agri-specific expenditure has three parts: payments to agents, general support, and then administrative costs. So we're looking at the second one now, the general support to the sector. And what are the big areas if you look at it? You see that inside general support, research and training accounted for 31% and 40% on average. So this is about 71% of total general support. The one at the bottom of the bar is agri research, and I think the next one is university training and other training. So you can see easily 70% of general support went to university training. So this includes the universities of agriculture under FMAD, ARCN, and a few others. So this is a big chunk of general support. But then when you look at extension, you see that extension range from 2%. Extension, what is the color? Is like purple. So this is extension. So you see extension range from 2 to 4%. And we know how important extension is to increasing yields. It ranged from 2 to 4% and had an average of 3%. Another category important to note is inspection and infrastructure. Inspection is important because of the rejections we get in exporting food and the drive to improve agriculture exports. If you're going to improve exports, you have to have high quality or they cannot go out. But inspection and infrastructure got 5% and 12% of general support. If you bring out general support as a group, they were disaggregating what comprised general support. So we went to another level to try and track what went to different commodities and commodity groups, because this will complement what we're doing about price analysis, price incentives. Price incentives is looking at whether government policies are artificially raising or depressing prices. And one of the things we look at is how much government is supporting each commodity to know if it's too much or too little. So we look at public expenditure data and try to extract what went to each commodity. As you can imagine, this is not an easy exercise because many expenditures are made broadly, but we still try to do that. Unfortunately, a high percentage of the data could not be disaggregated. So for crops, we could ascertain there were crops, but to go below deeper and say which crop, we couldn't do that for 73% of crop expenditure, and we couldn't do that for 94% of livestock related expenditure. So as the level of detail in the government recording system improves, the deeper we can go. But this is what we have, the extent we could go. Still some good messages are coming out. Cash crops got 10% and followed by cereals. Cash crops is important for increasing incomes and cereals a lot for food security. But broadly speaking, between the four subsectors, crops, livestock, fishery, and forestry, crops got 80%. Basically, it mirrored the structure of GDP. Yeah, basically, crops that account for a lot of GDP got a lot of the money. And I think that's understandable. What brings more money might be what you want to spend more on. Okay, so the slides before this one took each subcategory and told you the shares within each subcategory. So we took payments to agents and explained the shares within it. We took general support and explained the shares within it. Now we want to put everything on a level field and say, for the agri sector as a whole, where did the money go to? Because you need to be able to compare things that are not so related, but they're all agri. So stakeholders here have to decide where should the money go to. Ministry of Agri has to decide, the Ministry of Finance, the Parliament, everybody needs to decide. So it's good to have a level playing field where you see everything together. So if we use this, in this table now, the denominator, or what we're sharing, is total public expenditure in agri. That's what we're sharing here, not the subcategories. So let's start with the biggest ones. The biggest one here is rural education, got 49.3. That is followed by rural health. But two interesting ones that jump out, extension got 0.6% of total agri expenditure. And we know from the ARCN and others here, there are a lot of improved varieties out there that if we could just increase the adoption rates, the number of people that use them, you make yields to jump incredibly. And extension has a big role to play there. So it's interesting that extension got 0.6% of total agri expenditure. Now, if the government, if Nigeria stakeholders will have an active plan to use private sector to deliver extension, then this figure is not so bad. Because we've been talking PPP for a long time. So if we have an active plan to use private sector to deliver extension, then low expenditure on extension is fine, more or less. But if there is no active plan, then this figure is a problem. Because even if you stop doing further research and just disseminate existing varieties, yields will jump. And extension is key to that. Agriculture research received 6%, which is 10 times what extension got. Infrastructure received 2.7%, and rural education received 49%. Education is key to human capital improvement in the long term. We all know that. But in the short term, there are some things that draw down productivity of the farmer. Poor access roads. By the time they bring out their goods from the interior farms outside, it's late. They lose a lot of it. It's expensive. But feeder roads open up the farm and enable them cut out marketers and all that, and they get more money. So you have to juggle the two. Education is important, yes, but can we do more for rural infrastructure, which will increase the incomes of the farmers? So that's the importance of this table. It helps you compare across different kinds of expenditures and to judge for yourself which may be too high or which may be too low. So the impression coming out of this is that activities which improve productivity in the short term are really seem to be relatively neglected here. The other one they could do with more attention. When you consider the poverty level in the country and a large number of the poor farmers is what they're thinking about. It's slow in coming. Okay. Yeah, there's some delay in budget execution rates. To what extent were planned budgets met? I don't know why it's taking time. So while it's coming, okay. Yeah, okay, so it's here. So we wanted to see the extent to which plans that were made in terms of the budgets were followed. And what we see is that when you compare total budget for Nigeria and total expenditure, the share of actual over budget was 75% between 2015 and 2021. So that is for total federal government expenditure. But when you now take it to Agric was only able to get 58% of what was in the budget for Agric. So think about it. All ministries combined were able to get 75% of what they was in their budget, but Agric was only able to get 58%. We know that the revenue challenges in the last 6-7 years affected availability of money to do what was planned for. We know that. So what we're now looking at is who is the relative winner and who is the relative loser. Why does our sister in Ministry of Finance give more money to other ministries and not to Agric? So you can see that other ministries seem to have gotten a larger share of what they were supposed to get. So we can think more about this, but the message coming out is Agric is less able to secure what was in the budget for it compared to other ministries. That's what the 75 to 58 symbolizes. But digging into Agric even more, we see that certain kinds of expenditure in Agric got higher execution rates. Administrative costs pay salaries and pay utilities and all that, probably everything will come to a standstill. So you would have to make sure you spend more there based on available funding. The next one is general support, extension, etc. That one got 51%. Payments to agents like the school feeding programs, the food aid, the GES, that one got 41%. So this shows some kind of, should I say prioritization or adjustments in the ministry in the face of not having all the funds budgeted, certain areas get more attention than others. So now that we've seen the trends and the composition of public expenditure in agriculture, some key messages are coming out which can help us plan for the future. This analysis covers mostly the APP period, the Agricultural Promotion Policy, which was supposed to end 2021 from 2015 or thereabout. So at that time, and even now, we were targeting increase in exports, we're targeting improvement in productivity, we're targeting improvement in food security. So what we see from the expenditure by commodity is that there was a good effort to focus on cash crops, which would improve exports. So that is good. It shows that the government made effort to achieve its objective of increasing exports. And then the focus on cereals is equally good. Remember that table where by commodity, cash crops were first, then cereals. That is good. It shows that effort was made to increase cereals production and cash crops. But on the other side, you see that research and training got quite a lot. I think combined, they got 70%, while extension was getting, is it 0.6 or something like that? So there is need to really prioritize somehow. Again, unless there's an active, strong extension plan that is to be based on the private sector, more money would need to go to extension, because just by having better agricultural practices due to extension, we increase productivity. On inspection, expenditure on marketing, it wasn't so much. So that's another pointer that even as of today, we still have that target to increase exports, bring to the sector as a whole, has to play a bigger role in helping local producers export, helping them find markets, checking the standards of what they're producing. That definition and 6%. We use the broader definition. That's one. The second one is the relatively low bargaining power of agri. You saw that on average, other ministries were able to work their way and got 75% of what they were supposed to get, but agri was at 58% or so. So agri needs more lobbying power to be able to get more, even when funds are scarce. So we need to think of better ways to package Agric's requests with the Ministry of Finance to be able to get more. Again, because the level of hunger is high, the level of poverty is high. Getting about what others get is better than getting below what others get. So these are the main messages coming out of the public expenditure analysis so far. Thank you very much. And now,
Thank you very much. The two researchers. Finding for us very interesting, and I believe that all of us here must have jotted vegetables and other nutritious food. And now that you cannot be talking of food without nutrition. Whenever you said food, you must add nutrition to complete your sentence. So I don't know, the next item on the agenda is question and clarifications, but I look at time is about 11. We need to take a tea break before we open the floor for question and answer session. Dr. Jin, do you have any other? Okay. So we will take maybe 15 minutes tea break. When we reconvene, prepare your questions and comments for you to ask. The research people that conducted this study are here with us, so that you can begin to ask why those figures are showing that, the agricultural sector or the expenditure in agriculture is maybe looking at one side and the other side. So let's proceed. The tea is behind us. Just go and prepare your own. Take 15 minutes. We come back and Thank you very much. You are all welcome back. I believe that you all enjoyed the tea break. So let's go straight to the business of the day. The floor is open for questions, comments, based on the key findings presented by the two consultants, so that we can ask questions and see how we can, come up with a more concrete recommendation that will guide the government in terms of provision of adequate resources in a very spread manner that will touch both the crop, fisheries, and livestock sector. So the floor is open. Both our physical participant and online participant. I learned that there are a lot of online participants that wanted to join us in these conversations. So let me start with the director from CBN.
Okay, thank you. Well, exercise of this type is very, very difficult. And so I congratulate the team for getting the process to this stage. Of course, Nigeria operates a three-tier government, even though statistically, when we say general government, we refer to the federal government. So I understand this process might move to the states as well. But the questions which, even though I asked offline, and but because of the participants from the Ministry of Agric, was for us to get very clear the definition of government. So when in statistics, when we define government, we need to be clear. Does it include government establishments that are into profit making and so on? For instance, the government of Nigeria has very key institutions like the Bank of Agric, the Bank of Industries, the Central Bank of Nigeria, that are into agric financing. And we know that this financing is not done at market prices, which means agents actually do receive transfers. Because if the market rate is 18% and an agent gets funding at 5%, there is, of course, a transfer, a subsidize or a subsidy to that. So I hope that moving forward we can find a way of including such data. This is with respect to the comments made by the presenter, particularly Mr. Nwafo, on the household, consumption pattern of food. but this is going to be for the Minister of Agric. Since we are looking at rural education as part of agric-related expenditure, what education are we actually giving to our rural people? We are talking about nutrition here. We are talking about eating the right kind of food. As we know, our food is lopsided towards the energy side. We eat so much of cereal. So our indicators will not look very good if we are looking at healthy diet. Okay, because this will now include protein and other vitamins and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director.
And I believe that will help us to enhance the final report. So the floor is still open for anybody that wanted to.
Hello, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I would first of all like to appreciate the presenters for a beautiful job being done. But when I heard him during the presentation, he mentioned that agric are not being financed properly, which is true. It is very obvious. But he now mentioned that one of the solutions, at least to avoid this, is to do a lobby. And now think inside me, is it necessary to lobby before we can get whatever we need? Because in Nigeria, agriculture is the backbone of the life. If you don't eat, you cannot be. So I think it is time for government to think about this, to sponsor agriculture very well in the right way. Let's think food first. If you think food first, then every other thing will follow. That's my observation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next one.
Thank you very much for the well-detailed report findings. My comment is kind of observation. As part of the mandate of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is to ensure food sufficiency in crop, livestock, and fisheries. But from your findings, I don't know whether you classify subsector under the livestock, under the specific expenditure, considering the importance of fisheries sector in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you.
I don't know, for questions, are you going to respond before we proceed? Because the last two speakers, it's more of comment. The last person that just asked whether, okay, let's take one more respond.
Thank you very much. To the presenters, thank you for a well-structured presentation. My comment is on the actual expenditure, where other ministries have more percentage than the agriculture. Making comment directly on that will be difficult because, as you said, you couldn't capture the donor projects, which also carries a lot of expenditure on agriculture. If those donor projects were captured, then we can make very good comment on this aspect. It is very, very important for those donor project expenditure to be captured. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Johnson, you want to respond?
Okay. Thank you very much for paying attention and very good questions. What does government mean? This is a very good question because there's a concerns about mixing private money or commercial money with government money. The approach we used here, which can be modified possibly, but the approach we used here was to use whatever Ministry of Finance budgeted for. So anything that was in was regarded as government, anything that was out was not regarded as government. So we covered the 980 something MDAs under the Accountant General's office. So we could look deeper about BOI, BOA, and other related ones because it's an important issue when you're doing public expenditure analysis. You don't want to mix private money, commercial money with public money. And yes, subsidized interest rates is very important to capture that too. We did. There was support to equipment, support to irrigation, support to on-farm services. Subsidies were captured there. But if there are others we didn't capture, we have to make sure we capture them. Is fisheries classified under livestock? No, it's not. I think we just highlighted crops and livestock because we had a lot more data on them. But fisheries is not classified under livestock. Then accuracy of commenting on 75 versus 50 something. Then donor expenditure. Yes, it's good we get the donor expenditure and see whether it changes. We tried to do that through PCU, but the way they classified the expenditure wasn't detailed enough. We could again look at that, see how we can include it. Well, a point to be noted here for Accountant General's office and the use of gift miss. If the capturing of donor funded part of the budget is better done, we can easily show you which parts were funded by donors. So this is a message for Accountant General. If the gift miss system can better capture donor funding, that will be useful. You can respond later. Exactly. Yes. In all the file you gave us, it was just Switzerland is not one development partner was mentioned. Only one out of almost 2,000 or 3,000 rules. So we're sure there are more, but the way it was done, it wasn't more captured. Yeah. So I think those are the questions so far.
Okay. Good afternoon once again. When it comes to funding of agriculture sector, to me, agri is receiving more attention. But the only problem we're having is that they used to get funds from different sources. Especially the former minister used to, at her own end, used to take it as part of budget. For example, if the Ministry of Agri went through Mr. President and get special approval, and they get money from those special accounts, there's no how she will also add them another money to normal budget. She will take it as part of their budget. But it's not going to appear through GIFMIS because most of these approvals we are treating it, let's say manually. We just say manual mandate to CBN, maybe to charge, let's say, stabilization account or development of natural resources account and give them fund to Agric. So this kind of releases cannot be part of releases through GIFMIS. That is number one. Number two, the donor funding. like those funded to Padama 2, to New Map, all these projects that has to do with agri, is coming through one of our departments. We call it Federal Project Department. They are done dealing with all these World Bank related programs, whereby Nigeria will give its own counter funding and World Bank will bring their own counter. So this money too is not coming through JIFMIS. So I think there is a need to expand your research. You have to capture all those funding to all these projects, because they are receiving a very big amount of some in both foreign and the local currencies. So I think there is a need to, and also maybe you can request for all this special approval to agri. And as maybe you can request through federation accounts, because we used to get money through federation account and through some of our special accounts. So I don't know whether you come with 2 letters or even 3 letters. One to Director of Federal Projects, another one to Director of Funds, another one to Director of Federation Account, to give you all the release that has to do with agri. So by the time you get all this one and add it to the normal budgetary releases through JIFMIS, maybe by the time you come with the total government expenditures on agriculture sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice comment. And this has really even brought the issue of when we are talking of the cadre, the 10% that we're always talking, that Nigeria is yet to hit that 10% minimum budget to agriculture when you look at the total national budget. So somehow we are just looking at the only appropriation, the annual appropriation to the agricultural sector. So all the private investment, the donor funded projects, state and local government, are not captured. So by the time we capture all those expenditures and add them together vis-a-vis the national budget, I believe that our percentage will go up. It may even be more than the 10% that the CADEP is compassing.
Okay, let's believe so. But
So
I have.
Statistical.
Director is talking as a statistician.
Yeah.
He knows that once the numerator increases, the denominator will also increase. But I have a question. What you said is really interesting. I remember Obasanjo's time where we had these presidential initiatives. But looking to the data, a lot of expenditure was made in the SGF's office. Another one was made under presidency as a line item. So what I want to ask now, these special ones that they meet the president and the presidency is released, will it not be captured under SGF? What was the other one? Office of the head of service, these higher level ministries that are close to the president, or even presidency. If the president said release to this person, will it not be captured under the president's expenditure?
General, some specifics. For us in the Ministry of Agriculture, we knew quite well the interventions that are coming from the presidency to us, and we have records to back them up. But there may be some windows where we may not even have control. You see, for instance, the NALDA is here. NALDA, we don't have control over what was released to NALDA and how they put their records. Now, for interventions, I remember we had intervention to restock some of our silos. There was intervention to address the transboundary diseases and Quella-based attack. We have interventions in areas of flooding, some of these natural disasters. But specifically, we cannot say, okay, the presidency has been releasing funds for the sector, which we cannot even account for. I doubt much if there is any linkage to that, apart from that of NALDA, that we don't have control for the agri sector. So we need to be careful in trying to analyze some of this data so that it may not come back to us as if we have received these funds and we cannot account for them. The Accountant General Office is responsible for the releases of funds to MDS, and they have the records to show if they are willing to help they can give us some of these records to add to what we are doing. But for us in the sector, we are specific.
Very much for that clarifications. Any other?
Afternoon, everyone. What I want to just learn, I don't know the scope of I may know, but I don't know how that can be extended. What is the effect of the expenditure on the output? At least it may not be the focus of the research, but to be appreciative. If we can say I'm spending 10 million and I'm producing so metric tons of maize, it just as indication, a link, so I to appreciate what is the quantum of expenditure and then the kind of effect. I don't know whether the school can be moderated to include that.
Very good point. Also look at that. It's not always even sometimes it's not even the volume. Resources dedicated to the sector, but the outcome, the output. What are we really doing to show that we expended X billion of naira or dollar? How much are we contributing to the food security situation in the country?
Thank you very much. Though I came in late, apology for coming in late. But despite that, I think I can still be able to get one or two things from what people have said so far. Yes, from statistics point of view, I think this issue is a big challenge to the country. And I believe, I don't know whether the Minister of Agri is the one coordinating all agricultural activities in the country. If that should be the case, I think there should still be a way out to ensure that all agricultural activities, expenditure, whatever, are captured. For example, now, we, from National Bureau of Statistics, these are some of the things that people will come up and say, we need so information on this, so information on that. But you see, for us, as a coordinator of statistics in the Federation, definitely we cannot generate all the data we need. There are some data that we need to have through administrative system, which are from MDAs. We can only have those one then if they are available. If they are not available, we cannot manufacture them, except those that maybe we get through surveys or sensors or whatever. So the issue of agricultural expenditure has been a very big problem that the nation, we cannot even get specific, figure for. Like now, we have different agencies handling agricultural projects, which are not even known to Minister of Agriculture. The donors are there carrying out agricultural activities, which many people don't even know, or Minister of Agriculture cannot even account for. Then how can we now talk of specific expenditure on agriculture as a country? I think this is a big challenge that we need to look into. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this valid point. And I believe that maybe we have to go back and start looking at the scope of the study, so that if it is just limited for the usual annual appropriation to the sector fund, maybe it may be easier. But if we are looking at it holistically as a country, all agricultural expenditure, I think it's a very big study that we need a lot of data from all sources. But I believe that before we leave this room, we'll come up with a way forward on how this study can be, maybe, I don't know, review, or the scope can be expanded or narrowed to a very specific, so that whoever has written the recommendations or the key outcome of this study will be able to say that, okay, this study is just limited to maybe the annual appropriation to this agricultural sector, or donors or private or other things. Mr. Daddy, you want to?
Thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to speak. This is a very laudable exercise. And I must commend the experts who had worked on this. When you are dealing with agricultural finance, you have to be careful so that you will not step on toes or at the same time produce results that contravene some of the policies of the government and even the private sector. So I want to suggest that possibly we need to create some assumptions. So if we have assumptions, it will help the scope so that we will know the direction. We will know what exactly we are dealing with, since the donor interventions are not captured, so we can make assumptions in that order. Again, the methodology adopted, different from MAFAP, should be clearly stated, because once you have your methodology stated within the context of your work, it becomes very easy for anyone reading to know that this is what we have done. And again, there should also be a kind of annex to the data that we have used. We need to reference the sources of this data, and then, because we need to look at it, this is financial statistics. It is not just theoretical. It is something that the stakeholder will also like to see. Maybe we can have a window, a look at the data that you actually used to produce this result. For me, drawing inferences from the food balance sheet that was conducted recently, this study also corroborates that, because predominantly our protein intakes comes from vegetables, not even from livestock. And then we also discover in the study that the Nigerians feed more on the cereals, which also proved to us that 80% of the finances actually goes to crop production. That is a great one. However, the aspect of education that you mentioned, I think we need to define that aspect clearly so that we differentiate the education aspect from the adversary and then the extension services being rendered through the extension service. Because within the extension services, we still have education. Within extension services, we have adversary activity. I think these are some of the things that I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Dr. Mansa, I think there is need for you to revisit the very few slides that when we start. Okay, it's Dr. Jean, for participants to refresh their memory on the scope of this study. So I believe that one will address some of the questions people are raising, so that we'll be able to know, okay, this study is limited to maybe only the data we were able to capture from GIPMEs or annual appropriations and so on.
Schemes are referred to. These are long-term commitments of the federal government. Okay, if you have an interest drawdown scheme, it's funded by the federal government. These are funds that have been made available, over a very long time. That either the central bank or Nexim or whichever facility, that if a participant in that sector, goes to borrow money and pays back, is refunded. Okay, so in addition to the interest being lower, they are also refunded. So the schemes run by the central bank are not necessarily monies belonging to the central bank. These are schemes that were established for a very long time. The medium, the micro, medium, and small enterprises, and so on. These are schemes. Nexim also implements the same thing, okay, to make export easier for agri participants. Incentives are given to them. So maybe we need to just widen, okay, and possibly have a clearer understanding. But for now, the data passes for federal government expenditure, okay? So when you say public, public is all encompassing, okay? So it's all encompassing, including enterprises belonging to the public. Yes, so it was in that vein. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let me just clear. Then we take probably the last set. Just let me clear this out. Okay, it would be good to know the effect of the expenditure. Very, very important. So what we're doing here is data that can be used for further analysis. And we'll later, Jim will lead us to discuss more on the kind of analysis, further analysis we want to do. And finally, we'll settle with FMA, select the ones we want to do. It could be to say, what is the efficiency of spending? That could be what. Then how can we emphatically say what agric expenditure is? So as the director of clear scope, where does it start? Where does it end? Then you zero into that. For this exercise, we stopped at federal government of Nigeria. You can also go to state governments. You can also go to local. So what we did, any agency inside the appropriation, the annual appropriation, we tracked it. What we may change later or not is the what Tumala mentioned. Those that have those that have some kind of commercial flavor to them, we may take a second. But when I counted, there are about 980 something MDAs covered in this, and as followed by Accountant General's office. That's the scope of this report. We could broaden it, but right now we're looking at federal government of Nigeria. Donor expenditure, we didn't want to say much. It wasn't detailed. You saw how detailed this one was, down to training, feeder roads, etc., etc. We couldn't get that, so look at it. And when the report is ready, you have the data. Education and extension. Yes, they were created. Later, we can give more details on what levels of education, etc., etc. So I think we can take another round.
Thank you very much. This study, the results of this study for me is very educative, and I believe that it will be shared with us because we could use it to inform other decision or policy making processes from our various MDAs. However, I don't know, I'm not taking you back, but I just really want to know the objective of the study, the goal and objective of the study, to really understand the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To build on what she just said, the goals and objectives are very key. Also, if we talk about expenditure on agriculture, I think, like you said, we need to go deeper. What are these expenditures for? What was gotten from all this expenditure? I like your analysis on expenditure on extension, on research, and on crops. I think this is where this research should focus on. Is this really actually improving food production of food security in the country? All this expenditure is meant to improve food production and food security in the country. If, like she said, if we know the main objective of the study, is it just on how much is budgeted for agriculture, or the outcome of all this expenditure? What is the aim of these expenditures or these budgetary allocations? What are they meant to achieve? If this study will indicate if they improve or we are going in the wrong direction, like your analysis has shown, more of the expenditure goes on production rather than extension or research, we need to focus on where do we focus more on to make things better for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the researchers, for the beautiful study. And I agree with one of the participants that actually said this is a very difficult study. Because one of the questions I have is, how do you even demarcate between the different subsectors within the sector? For instance, if you look at agricultural research, within research, you have crops. Within research, you have extension. Within research, you have all those other subcomponents. And so if we are looking at the budget or the appropriation at face value, we may not see, what is really going toward. For instance, even within the crop subsector, for instance, you see that there is a lot of expenditure on the distribution of improved varieties, on empowerment and what have you. And some of these activities are even extension in nature. So there is a very difficult, it is very difficult to actually demarcate some of these things, but this can just give us a general overview of what some of the expenditures look like. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
MBS.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to know, I don't know the genesis of this exercise, but just to know and to get clearer. This something, is it standing for only federal government expenditure on agriculture or Nigeria expenditure on agriculture? Why am I asking this question? If it's going to speak for Nigeria, what of at the state level and the local government level expenditure on agriculture? But if we are looking at the federal government, maybe support alone on agriculture, then I think we are more or less on the right track. But if this thing is to speak for Nigeria, I don't know, maybe doctor will get us clear about that. Your research, is it for federal government alone or the entire government of Nigeria, including state and the local government?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Malamo, for shedding a little light on the aspect of research and development. My own view, or let me say comment on that, is what actually constitutes the research component. What are those variables within the research expenditure? Aside the research institutions in Nigeria, because there are pockets of researchers here and there with certain a level of resources representing expenditure. So maybe you need to also clear this aspect. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So the slide on the projector kind of summarizes the first objective of this analysis, is to say, where are we putting money? And then, are we putting money where we should put money? That's the first objective. Where are we putting money, and are we putting money where we should put it? So we have 100,000 naira. Are we using it in the best possible way? That's a question every department, every government needs to answer. Whether you're state government or local government or federal government, are you making best use of your limited funds? And just as an example, when you consider the quantity of unused technologies out there, varieties or machines, etc., when you consider that quantity, you begin to think we need more extension, because these things are lying on the shelf and they have the capacity to improve yields. So back again to, are you making the best use of your limited funds? So that's one. That's, are we making the best use? Then follow-up questions come, like our brother at the back said, what is the impact of this expenditure on outputs? Before you can answer the question of impact of the expenditure, you have to know the expenditure. So this is a stepping stone to more analysis. So before you can know if the expenditure on cereals is yielding results, you have to ascertain the expenditure first. And this exercise is supposed to be done every 2 years. We'll create a trend of expenditure on cereals. Then you can comfortably compare that to cereal yields over time. If you don't have the expenditure, you cannot do the analysis between expenditure and yields. So this is a raw material for a lot more analysis. But even this alone is important because it tells you if you are putting your money in the right place, the limited money we have. So the overall objective of MAFAP is to be able to do analysis of food and agriculture policy towards improving food and nutrition security. And inside it, you have the public expenditure component, which looks at how we use money. So there's the quantity of money used, and then there's the efficiency of that money, which is other things we can look at. Is it FG or states? So for this level, we're focusing on the federal government. To the extent possible, we can look at later, if possible, states and local government. But the one we're doing right now is to say federal government as an entity. How are you spending your money? Are you making the best use of it? We know from experience that federal expenditure is only half of agriculture expenditure. If you compare state expenditure in agric, it's as much as federal expenditure. But at the moment, we don't have detailed access to state expenditure. So we're just looking at federal. What constitutes research? So the first pointer is all the expenditure by the ARCN institutes went to research, practically all of them, because that's their mandate. And then any other institution that does research was included. Agric research, yes. Then how did we manage to know what is agric or what is not agric? The information from Accountant General's office, the accounting system used by the federal government of Nigeria has columns on program description, expenditure description. From there, you can tell what the money was spent on most of the time. There is even a classification that is similar to COFOG that is also used. So all this combined helps you tell what the money was used for. And where we could not tell, we put it as unclassified. But for the broad categories, we could tell. But when we went deeper into which crop and all that, you couldn't really tell. Then how can you practically say what is agric expenditure? In the last 10, 15 years, the African Union and many others, including MAFAP, have developed classification systems. So our job is to follow those systems strictly, and you come to the conclusion of what agric expenditure was at a given point in time. So I think that's right.
And just one element that I wanted to add on when you were mentioning the best use for the budget, I think it's also it relates to the one aspect of MAFAP, which is the policy coherence. So when we think about best use, it's not that we have a standard that we use in every single country. It's the question of consistency between the allocation of the budget and the policy tools and objectives that have been determined by the country. Because the study is published and is meant to be done regularly, this instrument could also be able to be used to track, for instance, the implementation of the NATIP in the future, looking at the objectives that have been basically set in the document and whether the expenses based on the public expenditure analysis are consistent and coherent with, what Nigeria is trying to achieve.
For this clarification, but one quick one, I think we have to agree on the keywords we are going to adopt as far as this study is concerned. Maybe federal government expenditure, or because when we use the word public, it's confusing. Public may be general, federal government, state, or local government, But if we now said, okay, it's federal government agricultural expenditure analysis, then our mind will all go to the usual annual appropriations and some of the intervention that GIDMIS in the Office of the Accountant General will be able to capture. How can we, we have to define it clearly so that it will not create this confusion. Because my colleague from NBS, he brought it very clearly. Is it federal government, excluding state and local government? Or when you use the word public agricultural expenditure, how are you limiting your scope of the study? So going forward, I believe that if we can have that clarity, so that henceforth, as we move on, we can know that it's federal government agricultural expenditure analysis.
Okay. We have a small emergency. The hotel booked lunch for us 12 to 1. And they are kind of insisting that after that 12 to 1, they don't have chance for us. Maybe another team is coming. So we're hoping to round up, then go for lunch. So what do we do now? Because we still have session 2.
Yes, we're going by the agenda. Yeah, we have session 2.
So do we go for lunch and come back?
Yes, we have no option.
It seems they have another group coming after. Or yeah.
We can go and take our lunch. For those that felt they can't eat now, maybe they can package it. Take away. I know hotel used to do take away. Maybe you just pay for the little pack. To package. So let those that don't want to eat now, they can take the option of take 10 pack. Let's just go and eat. You eat small if you are not feeling hungry. It's not necessary that you must take full.
Okay, how many of us wanted to take away?
If it is more than the 10 pack,
But not school. If that time exhausted, so anybody that wants has to pay at it. So let me find out. Because I should be, let me just share all the package for everybody. So that we get that package. Yes. But for the elected kind of coaching of the as well. There you can but the major category, I believe, is swallow and all these rice and whatever. You said it's water. So how many people go for rice? How many? Well, people is swallow water.
What I want that so that we don't
No, she said that it's a great crop per month. Only 1 hour. She don't have any. Okay. Okay, how many want swallow? How many people want swallow? We have the number, then others is rice. Swallow is 1, 2, 3. Only 3. Only 3 people want swallow. All others, rice and whatever. What is swallow? What are rice? Yes. You want to get clarification because we don't think it's 10 parts. And the number let me Let's give it that. The second session
So the restroom is behind here for anyone that wants to use the restroom.
Sorry, for those that wanted to use the restroom, there is a restroom here, close to us.
Sure. Okay, can we start session 2? Okay, I don't know, our online participants, nobody wanted some comment, so that they will not feel like they have not carried them along. Okay.
We start with thank you everyone. We will continue with the second session. So the second session is intended to be more of mostly a discussion. I will start by providing more information about the next step for the analysis and the data that we just presented. And I will also include the next step for MAFAP activities in Nigeria based on our next plan, on our work plan agreed with the Ministry of Agriculture. So the first, I want to share this really complicated graph to mainly say that MAFAP activities are based on, perfect, thank you. Okay, mainly to say that MAFAP activities are based on two pillars: prioritize areas of policy intervention and then support adoption and implementation. The first step of the first pillar is to track and monitor policy problems. And to do that, we use as diagnostics the public expenditure analysis and the price incentives that we have presented or mentioned earlier. When it comes to what will happen with the data that we just presented to you, it will be coupled with the price incentive and indicators and analysis. Together will give rise to a policy coherence analysis where we will look at the results of both indicators and the coherence with the policy tools that were implemented at the time of the study. And they will be put together in what we call the Policy Monitoring Review for Nigeria, which is a report that will be fully edited and published and shared with you, just to give you some visibility on what happened next when it comes to what we've prepared, and which will be improved also with the comments that we received today. But what I would like to do during the session is to start moving in that direction. And of course, what I want to do, which is focus on the second pillar, which is the support, adoption, and implementation of policy solution, will be a mix of discussion that will be based on the result of the indicators, the conversation that we're going to have today, and also the priority of the Ministry of Agriculture. But MAFAP, for the past 7 years, in addition to producing public expenditure analysis and price incentives, has been working on more than 20 policy processes in more than 10 countries, advising governments on the identification of priority policy areas, policy issues, and the formulation of policy solutions. The topics were broad, but if we look at what we covered in the past 7 years, they focused mainly on trade and market policies, strategy development, prioritization of investments, and also more scarce topic like storage, input, food losses, and waste. So again, the price incentive and the public expenditure analysis are not, of course, there are tools that are meant to be implemented regularly and help assess the impact of policy in Nigeria. But there is a second component of the activities of MAFAP in the countries, which is to support with the program analytical resources. So I'd like to use the opportunity of having you around the table to maybe have a conversation on priority policy areas where MAFAP could provide some evidence, some analytical resources, whether they are priorities that are just stepping up at the moment, or whether there is ongoing policy reform where our analytical resources could be of help to provide more evidence. On this slide, you see that usually the way we work is that first we select 1 or 2 policy issues, then we prepare terms of references and a concept note identifying the policy challenges. And then upon official request from the ministry, we produce the analysis and present actionable policy recommendation with 1 policy report, a policy brief, and a few workshops to disseminate the results of the event. Looking at recent intervention of MAFAP, I put those 2 examples. The first one is work by MAFAP on the resilience of the maize sector and structural issues affecting the performance of the sector in Kenya. There's also been an assessment of the competitiveness of Uganda's beef products and looking at the dynamism of the destination markets and making recommendations to address the challenges. We have also worked in Mali on the food reserve system and the mechanism and try to understand its effectiveness. In Ghana, there's been a study that looked at alternative export products, where there was a comparison that was presented to the Minister of Agriculture. And to identify alternative export products that were more beneficial or more competitive at the regional level. So again, objective of this meeting, which was to present those from you, just ideas of currently working or that are of concern, where MAFAP could start the work of kind of understanding where policy challenge may be and produce a couple of concept notes and then figure out whether a larger analysis can be produced to help reform process. Yes, that's the intro.
Thank you very much for the second presentation, which of course highlighted some of the steps that is that we are going to move forward. So the floor is open for anybody that wanted to make some comment or questions or observations. That will really help the consultant to, review and fine tune going forward. The floor is open. I think the comment can still come under the first sessions or the second sessions, because I want to believe that one of our participants says he has something to still bring on board, but led to the first session, not this second session that was presented.
Thank you for the second presentation. My comment on the first session is still going to be on advising you to, I know how difficult you said it is, but unfortunately, it will make this your findings more reliable and acceptable when you are able to capture the donor project, like I said. I know it's difficult. If my director is here, he will agree with me that based on the table you displayed, looking at rural infrastructure, school, education and health, chunk of billions of naira goes to the donor project and majorly on rural infrastructure. When you look at feeder roads, storage facilities, rehabilitation or creation of building schools and hospitals, and also providing inputs apart from capacity building. They cover a lot. The federal government uses this donor project to execute rural infrastructures. And if they are out of these findings, on the policy, on your second presentation, I am sure you are working based on the policies provided by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the federal government. There is change of direction with the new government, and I know you will find a way of aligning to the direction of the new government and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, which is based on food security generally. And what you are doing is, that is why I look at it and feel if we look at expenditure on agriculture, we can relate it to how it is being used to improve food security or not, the impact of this expenditure. This is my take on your second presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mine is just to ask a question. on the kind of technical assistance you provide, is there any way you could include capacity building for middle-level officers on how to do this analysis to inform policy decisions or policy recommendations? For example, my ministry, we deal with policies and policy briefs. So I believe that many of our middle-level officers would benefit from your knowledge on how to analyze data to inform policy recommendations or briefs and writing policy reports. Secondly, I would want to ask, is it your agreement, is it strictly with Federal Ministry of Agriculture, or you can extend such to other agencies, other relevant agencies? Thank you.
I'm sure we know that we have a policy document, which is the NATIP, the National Agricultural Technology Innovation Policy. So whatever we want to bring up in this area of support should align and mirror the policy, because that policy survives. And then, having said that, from our own point of view, at the ministry level, we are lacking in the area of cost analysis within the value chains and even outside the value chain. But if we consider the value chain, we discover that up to this moment, it's difficult even for each of the value chain to ascertain the exact cost of production of a particular commodity within the value chain. Now, every month, or let's say quarterly, the National Bureau of Statistics have a template sent to the ministry to capture these costs. It has always been very difficult because those information sent to them most often are being subject to estimation, not really taking it from the objective point of view, where you go to the field and you are able to actually capture the exact cost of production of a particular product, commodity per time. So I want to see a scenario where MAFAP going forward can mirror cost analysis into the expenditures to help policy formulations. And also you look into the NATIP, and then you see area you can extract and then bring up an area of support. Thank you very much.
I don't know, I believe that during the very first presentation, the consultant made it very clear that this is limited to our previous policies, the agricultural promotion policy. So NATIP came 2022, we started operating 2023 to date. So if we are to switch to the current policy, I doubt if the level of implementation in terms of NATIP can even allow us to conduct a more robust study on the document, because APP 2015 to 2020, yes, it's a document that the ministry has been implementing. And I believe the study will, the period will allow the expert to carry out a more intensive study than subjecting the study to the current NATIP that is somehow new. We have not gone far in terms of implementation under the context of NATIP. But I don't know how, if the consultant wanted to throw some light, how can we marry the two so that when we are presenting the final finding and recommendation to the management, they will see it as the key issues brought out is also aligned under the context of the current policy that we wanted to achieve from now to 2027. Over to you.
So on the point that you just raised, it is true that the analysis that has been produced from 2015 to 2021 is on the APP. In the policy coherence and the recommendation that we will produce in the policy monitoring review that will include both the public expenditure and the price incentives. We have to discuss internally and see to what extent some of those recommendations can also be made in light of the objectives of the NATIP. I think there's a way to bridge achievement and shortcomings of the previous policy, and also kind of inform and point out what needs to be kept in mind as a weak point or as a priority when implementing the NATIP. So this document the report can definitely bridge the APP and NATIP when it comes to policy coherence. If I got your point right.
Yeah.
To go back to the question of the capacity building, it is something that MAFAP provides mostly on the two tools that we've presented. I mean, one of them has been presented for the moment, but the public expenditure and the price incentives. In other countries where we intervene, we organize 1, 2, 3 days workshop to actually familiarize officers from the ministry on the capacity of producing regular public expenditure analysis and price incentives internally. It is also part of the mandate, and this is something that MAFAP has been offering and is currently offering in other countries. So this is something that we can clearly consider if there's a necessity. It will, however, be limited to those two monitoring tools, the public expenditure analysis and the price incentive analysis. Sorry. So this is the partnership that we have in Nigeria, and the work plan that we have established with the government is through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. In our work plan, we have decided that looking at the first pillar and even the second pillar, the decision-making and exchange and strategy would be discussed with the Ministry of Agriculture. But it is very open for MAFAP to be able to explore other areas and other partnerships that could make sense in trying to identify those policy issues and formulate policy solutions if they are consistent with the partnership that we have with FMART. So it's very open. And in other countries, we've been working with the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance, with different agencies that are either under the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Agriculture. So the focus for us is really to be able to pinpoint those policy issues that are relevant for inclusive agricultural transformation, and to be able to work with the right partner. So this is something that we're open to discuss. Yeah. I just took note of the comments on the cost analysis on specific value chains. That is also something that I will report to the team and include it in the list of issues that we'll look at for sure. Yeah.
Also be of relevance to include the aspect of data collections, to really look at issues of data, particularly when you consider the NADMIS, which we have, that has to do with National Agricultural Data Information System. So we need to look at that also, because statistics, data, the combination of the two is of paramount importance to this work. So let us create that aspect so that we lay more emphasis on that within the policy analysis as we are moving forward. Create an aspect of this data because it's very important. Thank you.
Any other contribution? Way forward. Yeah?
Thank you. What I want to add is your paper, I think, should be flexible enough to accommodate new policies. Like you rightly said, it can accommodate, and I believe what you are doing is still aligned with the current direction of the government. We are all talking about, all the policies are talking about improved production and food security. And what you are doing is trying to see where the expenditures goes. More is being spent on either extension, crop production, and research. My take is, in your analysis, how would you, if we say more goes to crop production rather than extension or research, it will make more sense if we are able to relate it to how it impacts on the output, the agricultural production. Like the speaker said, extension agents can brings about more yields. Each policy goes with the current key drivers of food insecurity. The present, when you started, I believe the issues of insecurity are limited. They are not the main focus of the policy. Currently, when the present government says improving food security, it is due to the food insecurity situation that has been aggravated by the insecurity situation where farmers cannot even access their farms. So now when, at the end of this, when we say more expenditures goes to this sector, how do we relate it to improving or impacting on food security generally? Because this is the direction of the government currently. Improving food security, and the government is looking at all year agriculture. I think this is one aspect we should focus on to see how we relate this expenditure to the output of the country, to see how we can advise which policy can go with it. And then we take these issues of insecurity and climate change, which is the main key drivers of food insecurity, to see how we can relate this to the two key drivers: insecurity, high food prices, commodity prices, and climate change. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Mons, you want to?
So just to aid us more, another way of putting it is there some research in your department, maybe cocoa value chain, land department, some research that you've been wanting to do that you've not had the opportunity to do it, and MAFAP could help? Maybe in national planning, there's some agriculture research you've been wanting to do that MAFAP could help to do with the kind of analysis we did here and related analysis. So this is an opportunity for you. If there's some research you've been discussing in your department, you could need some help with, you could share it with us and we'll see if it's something we can work on.
Is it the CH report? Is this report? CH. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. When you share it, I will also relate to the consultant. So any other concerns? Cocoa value chain, I'm aware that there is a committee, National Cocoa committee on cocoa. What is the update? In fact, I'm a member, but it's so long that I've not had anything from your desk. Cocoa value chain. We are trying to resuscitate cocoa industry in Nigeria, especially the cocoa producing states, so that our cocoa farmers will begin to be getting the value of cocoa compared to the farmers in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. We are selling our cocoa beans too cheap. All those merchants that are coming to buy our cocoa beans, they're just giving our farmers peanuts. When Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, they are getting high price. So what's the key? Is it the quality or how? No.
In cocoa value chain, before we have a cocoa board committee where the cocoa farmers work with them in terms of the price they will sell their products. But with time, it's no more working out because the governments are not supporting the cocoa farmers the way they're supposed to support them to produce their products. But they now resuscitate the committee. They constituted a new committee now where they are working on how to see that farmers produce in a large quantity by supporting them with some farm inputs. And after their production, they have to agree on the actual price they will sell. You don't go and sell on your own. They sell as a group because they have cooperative. If you are not among them, you'll be wasting your product, selling at a cheaper rate. But because of with the aid of that cooperative, they help them to sell fixed price. They fix price for them on what to do, on how to sell their produce. And when they sell, they make money that will help them to finance their farms. Government is now supporting them with farm inputs at a subsidized rate, except the farmer is working on his own. That is when they will not benefit. But once you join the cooperative, it will help you to work in line with their rules, and you end up enjoying your work after enjoying whatever you produce out of your farm and make money out of it, and also help you to grow than remaining where you are. And again, I want to ask a question. The full meaning of this MAFAP, I'm confused because this is my first time of
I think coincidentally the consultant is also from Abidjan, and I believe that he can give us some insight on how Cote d'Ivoire was able to make their cocoa beans more superior, in the global market. So that one will help us to, start advising our Nigerian farmers that produce cocoa to, how government can come in and support them so that we will be able to be enjoying that price, the global price. We only eat the chocolate, but we don't enjoy the price.
I'm afraid. So first, MAFAP stands for Monitoring, Analyzing Food and Agriculture Policy. I think that's the question that you asked. Unfortunately, I don't have the magical solution on how Ivory Coast managed to structure its sector, and I'm also not an expert in the cocoa value chain. But to a certain extent, this is just trying to hint at what Mr. Ibrahim said. This is one of a policy area or a topic that we could explore, comparative analysis of the structure of the cocoa value chain in Ivory Coast and the price setting mechanism, the way the sector is being monitored and the leadership. I think this is one of the area where MAFAP could produce an analysis that could maybe inform that are currently being made for the constitution. I'm not sure if I understood if it's already in place or if it's being constituted, the cocoa value chain committee. But this is the kind of analytical work that MAFAP can bring to inform the decisions in terms of structuring that are being made at the moment within the cocoa value chain department, for instance.
Any other maybe process of consultant that's anything wanted to add to the session before we close it. That's why we in the beginning we say have nine.
Okay. Okay. Let me just chip in, like Darry was saying, who was saying. Yes, the data we looked at covers 2015 to 2021. But like John was saying, any lessons we learn from there will be packaged to support the implementation of NAPTIP. If anything we're doing moving forward is to see that the NAPTIP is supported to have optimal implementation. So everything we're doing is to support the existing government policy so that you get the best possible outcome.
Yes.
Any further questions, clarification, or comments? We wanted to end this meeting and call it a day, but going by the agenda, there is space for closing remarks, and my director has to go to another meeting, and he asked me to extend his appreciations and thank all the participants that honor our invitation and contribute very well to this process. The consultant, factor in all the issues brought. It will clean the key outcomes of this study before we will now organize a larger stakeholders workshop for them to present the final recommendation that will now be presented to the management for implementation. On this note, I thank you and our IT person who has been managing our, presentation very well, Mr. Austin. Thank you very much. On behalf of the management of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture for Security, wanted to officially close this meeting and wish each and every one of us safe back to our various destinations. Thank you very much. Okay, our food in the next how many minutes? 20 minutes. Hey. To package, I don't know. Why it doesn't take they felt it's important for them to present and identify some, gaps so that they will now quickly fill the gap before they will now run another analysis for that. But what I think we have the attendance containing all the email address of participants, we can share it as well. Thank you very much. That's how we do it.